Welcome back. So for my third preview for today, which will leave us with 6 left, I'm doing the Florida preview. So people have been asking, so you're not going alphabetical order? No. Alphabetical order, I've done it every year because it's 2020. Sure, I'll just go all over. Now, what I've been doing with the previews this year, since I got a lot of the retro reverse jerseys, reverse retro jerseys, I've been wearing those in the previews. So for the teams that I have the reverse retros for, I've been doing those previews first. Now, the reverse retros I don't have yet, I should have tomorrow. So, you betcha. We'll be doing previews for the other 6 teams once I've got the retro reverse for those teams. So, Florida, the last of the retro reverse jerseys in my collection that I haven't done a preview for. Over the last 3 seasons, Florida, it's been rough, hasn't it? So Florida is a team that, on paper, you look at them every year and you go, yep, they should be a playoff team, and then somehow they're not. Or maybe they kind of are, and then they fall out, and all of this wonderful stuff. They had 96 points in 2017-2018. Looked pretty good. 2018-2019, 86 points. And this past year, 93 points was what was their projection over 82 games. And then the Islanders just took them out. And I think what was upsetting about the loss by Florida against the Islanders is not necessarily losing to the Islanders. There's no shame in that. It's how. It's how they lost. And it's that their key players just weren't good enough when needed. And so there's some struggles going on with the Florida Panthers that have been really part and parcel of the Florida Panthers since 1997. Really, since 1997. This has been an issue with this team. That's over 2 decades, almost 25 years. And it has to be tiring because we always hear, oh, Florida doesn't have fans. Florida doesn't have fans. Like, Florida's going to have partial attendance. Haha, they always have partial attendance. They haven't won a round since 1996. They very rarely make the playoffs. They're just not a very well-run team. And you can understand why, after 20-plus years, people might not want to turn up. Now, I'm not saying that Florida's had fantastic attendance for decades, but you kind of understand why fans eventually said, yeah. And it can be really hard to win over casual fans when you don't win anything. So you can't generate any kind of buzz locally, and then you look at where they are in Sunrise, and there are a lot of reasons. But when you look at what this team lost in the offseason, it's mildly concerning. We heard rumors during the year they wanted to cut their budget by $10 million. Now, you look at the cuts they've made to the roster in terms of guys who left as free agents and the guys they bring in. And I'm not saying it's $10 million, but considering the pandemic slowdown and all the money that's been lost there, this is a team that has to be losing a ton. Now, the players who've left, Hoffman, Dadonov, Matheson, Howla, Sevier, Boyle, Wallmark, Tony Nato, Pesic, and Josh Brown. Not all of these players are necessarily huge parts of the team, and Matheson definitely had his issues in the return, and just in general, Matheson had a really rough year. But losing Hoffman and Dadonov are a problem. This was a team that scored a lot of goals. They're going to be counting on a couple of kids to step in. Denisenko is not on the board, but he's going to be counted on to step in and provide some offense. And of course, there's risk with that because rookies, right? The Hockey News Power Ranking has them at 22nd. The Sports Forecaster has them 7th in the Atlantic Division. I personally have them ranked at 6th in the Central. I have them ahead of Chicago. I have them ahead of Detroit. It is weird that a Florida team's in the Central, but at least both of them are, right? So, yeah, Florida, I'm not anticipating playoffs, and yet here's the weird part. So for the last 2 years when I did previews, 2019 and 2018, I predicted, yep, Florida's going to make the playoffs. And they didn't. Now this year, I can't see it. And I remember I was like that with Carolina, and then after I said, fine, I can't see it with Carolina, then they did. So maybe. They have the players that can do it. Now, in terms of players that were too low in the scoring category last year, 2 guys with matching totals that I think can be better. Vinny Hinostroza has to get better. He had a miserable year in Arizona. Has to get better here. This may be one of his last chances. Guys get more than one chance, but he needs to show something more than in 68 games. He had 5 goals, 17 assists for 22 points. Not a great year. Wenberg, 57 games, also had 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points for Columbus. Played his way in and out of the lineup. And I think for Wenberg, I think it's better that he's moved on. I think his numbers get better in Florida. And then Bobrovsky, that 900 save percentage stands out. They're paying a lot of money to Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky is being counted on to give them the kind of goaltending they haven't had. They've created a new goaltending excellence department because I think they understand that goaltending's been a problem in Florida for a long time. And it has spanned a number of goaltenders, including Luongo, who's helping to run that department. So he might be the best guy to figure out how to fix it, right? Florida's got, I really think it's organizational issues that have held them back. 24 years without a playoff win, like a playoff series win, there's problems in your organization if it's been that long. The rookie to watch, I went with Owen Tippett. Denisenko, yes, should be up there as well. But Owen Tippett, I think, is going to be counted on to score points right away. To step in, I'm not going to say step in for Dadonov, but if he could, that'd be great. That's kind of the way I think it's going to be treated. He's going to be gifted a spot in the top 6 if he can take it. Now, their goals for last year, they scored 3.3 goals a game, which was 6th in the NHL. Their goals against 3.25, which was 28th. And it is a combination of the blue line and the goaltending. Both of them equally problematic last year, which is why defensemen on Florida's blue line may take more criticism than they might somewhere else because you look at the overall numbers and there's reasons for that. Power play, 21.33%, which was 10th. Their power play was pretty good, but the penalty kill, 78.49%, 20th. They need to bring that up. So again, the goals against average, the penalty kill, both of them are lower than you're going to want them if you're Florida. Their big additions, Wenberg, who I previously mentioned, Hornquist, who they picked up from Pittsburgh, may very well be able to put in 15 goals over 56 games, and Nudavara, who's been added on the blue line to help, offset some of the losses they've had off that blue line. Their core 6, so again, this is your young players, your young core going forward. Huberdeau, Barkov, are going to be there for a long time. Barkov's been talked about a lot as being the most underrated player in the league. You ask almost any hockey fan, who's the most underrated player in the league? And when they say Barkov, you can say, no. I say this because if we all agree he's underrated, he's not really underrated then, right? So I think now Huberdeau is the most underrated. I think Huberdeau is more underrated than Barkov because we always talk about Barkov. And then Tippett. I think there's the asterisk there because Tippett, it's his spot. They've cultivated this player, they've let him take his time, and now it is his time. On the blue line, Ekblad and Weegar. Ekblad, if Florida takes that next step this year, if they can be a playoff team, Ekblad may finally get some of the credit that Florida fans will tell you he's deserved. And Weegar, arguably their best defensive defenseman. And then in net, right now it's Bobrovsky, but Spencer Knight is in the offing. Spencer Knight will end up, they hope, being that goalie of the future, that next guy. And so Bobrovsky's there for right now. With the amount of money he's being paid, he's in Florida until that contract's done or bought out, because that's a lot of money. In a flat cap world, I don't see anybody taking that on, even if he became available at any point, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. Their coach, Joel Quenneville, is a reason to believe. He is. Their general manager, Bill Zito, pretty smart hockey mind. And so they've moved on from Dale Talon. Now they've got Bill Zito in there. Again, reason to think that maybe this is a sign things are going to change around in Florida. Look at Edmonton. Edmonton adds Holland. They bring in Tippett. And suddenly things look a lot more stable. That's what Florida is going to be looking for with Zito and Quenneville. That kind of stability at the top and better organizational thinking, with the new goalie excellence department. And then the question becomes, do we see the fruits of that this year, or does it take at least past this season for us to really see the difference? If you're a glass half full kind of person, despite all the losses they've suffered, they still have a decent lineup. They still have, on paper, a team that should be competing for a playoff spot. And coaching, as I said, Joel Quenneville, as he's going along now, the players that are more in line with the message he's delivering should be those guys that stick around, the guys that may not be part of his future, or the guys that he wants. There were points in that series against the Islanders where he looked frustrated. Like there were guys that he would really want that he just didn't have. So we'll see if this year we see some kind of a change in the philosophy of the team, more into what Quenneville maybe had in mind. He just may not have had the players for it. Now, if you're a glass half empty type person, you just have to look at their history. They find ways to fail. This is an organization that on the ice, off the ice, they find a way to screw it up. And they're, everything looks great, and they're on fire. Why are they on fire? How are they on fire? They're on ice. How are they on fire? And that's how it works. And depth on the wings, I have questions because, again, Denisenko and Tippett are being counted on to step in. They're both inexperienced at the NHL level. If they're both being counted on to play top roles, if Frankie Vetrano's being counted, I love Frankie. Don't get me wrong, I love Frankie. But I don't know that he's a top 6 guy if he ends up in a position like that. I also think Achari probably falls back off that incredible, insane goal-scoring season he had last year. So there's some concern I have in general on those wings. The next big hype, I went with Anton Lundell. I know there's Florida Panthers fans already excited about him, but there's others who are ahead of him in the queue, like Tippett and Denisenko. So I figured Lundell. There's a lot of good young forwards in the Florida organization. This is a team that if they can figure this out, we could be talking about them a couple of years from now and say, wow, Florida really got everything together. And, wow, why did we ever doubt them? I've been trying to hype them up for years, and it's just maybe they've broken me down. The record month by month this past season, in October they were 6-3-4, so mediocre, but November 7-5-1, getting better. December 7-6, January 8-2, and they looked good in January, and then it fell off a cliff in February 5-9-2, March mediocre, but 2-1-1. So their overall record, like I said, projected out to 93 points over 82 games. There you go. Versus Carolina, they were 1-2, so this is against their divisional opponents for this year. Versus Columbus, they were 1-1-1. Versus Chicago, 1-0-1. Versus Dallas, they won the only meeting between the two teams this year. Versus Detroit, they were 3-0, so they love the Detroits in this division. They also beat Nashville both times they played them, and then against Tampa, they were 1-3. So if they can figure out how to beat Tampa, they're pretty good because their record against these teams, 10-6-2. So not too shabby. And again, Florida could be in the mix. I have them 6th in the Central. They could finish as high as 3rd. I'll say as high as 3rd because there's the potential for Dallas to fall back, for Columbus to fall back, and for Nashville, who's had their issues, I could see a regression there as well. It's possible. So Florida fans, there's reason for optimism, but I say it every year. So there's kind of an asterisk next to that even in my brain because every year they've kind of let me down. Maybe this year, now that I'm not picking them to make the playoffs, maybe this is the year they do. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.